Hey everybody, this is Dan Niedermeyer. Did the Boston Marathon bombings. This is Tevis-Finn's class, period 5, live from room 114. Alright, so this is an overview of what we're going to do today. Well, first we have Monday, April 15th, 2013, which is when everything started. Then I'm going to talk about injuries and casualties, some suspects, what happened in Watertown, the arrests, and then finally, Boston Strong. Alright, so on your guided notes, you'll see number 1, which is intro. So this is basically Monday, April 15th, 2013. So, on April 15th, 2013, 2 bombs were set off near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. So the first bomb went off just before 3 p.m. on Boylston Street. So more than 17,000 runners had already crossed the finish line, but over 1,000 were yet to cross. And this is just a quote someone said, they just started bringing people in with no limbs, which is pretty shocking and very scary, as you can imagine. So unfortunately, 3 people died that day, and over 180 were wounded. Alright, so now we're on injuries and casualties, which is unfortunately not something we like to discuss, but part A of your guided notes, the 3 that were killed on this horrific day were 8-year-old Martin Richard, 23-year-old Lou Lingzi, and 29-year-old Crystal Campbell. So, it was not sure how these people were killed because authorities didn't immediately know where the bombs went off or where they came from. So, the streets and the sidewalks were literally bloodbaths. Alright, so here we are with suspects. So, there are 2 main suspects right here. Tamerlan Sarnaev and his brother Zohar Sarnaev. So at the beginning of the investigation, there were more than 3 suspects, but it took 3 days to actually determine who the true suspects were, which were these brothers right here. So the suspects used pressure cookers to make the bombs, which is scary just knowing that we can literally use household items to make bombs and kill innocent people. So D, the bombs were placed in backpacks in front of everybody, which was horrifying, knowing that you were standing right there. And nearby stores and pictures make it obvious that the brothers Tamerlan and Zohar were the 2 suspects of this terrorist attack. So last on the suspects, letter F, excuse me. Boston remains in a city lockdown, including anything from Amtrak, cellular devices, and more, as you guys heard. So here we are, Tamerlan, the older brother, and as you can see, he's wearing a hat. It's kind of disguising himself, which is kind of smart considering his brother was just wearing a backwards hat, revealing his face and everything. But letter A, he's brother of Zohar, and he was older than his brother, as I mentioned before. And during the Watertown shootout, which occurred later, Tamerlan was shot in the shootout, which was not too good for him, but kind of deserved. So here is Zohar, just kind of as everyone knows, the main kind of last man standing of the suspects. And as you can see in this picture right here on the right, a good close-up of him. But at the same time, you can see in this picture right here in the left, kind of in the corner, he's kind of running away from everything, kind of blending in with everyone, but he's just in the open. So letter A, he was kind of known as the main suspect when people mentioned the Boston Marathon bombings. And Zohar actually killed his brother, well, not killed him, but after he was shot, he ran over his brother in Watertown trying to escape. After being hunted down for hours, he was finally found bleeding in a boat in a residential neighborhood in Watertown. So, letter D. In the boat, he tried to commit suicide, but failed, obviously, as he was later arrested. And on April 19th at 1 a.m., give or take, he was arrested. Excuse me, messed that one up. So yeah, sorry about that. On April 19th, he was arrested around 9 p.m., not 1 a.m. So here we are. Shootout in Watertown, which is number 6 on your guided notes. On April 19th, around 1 a.m., as I mentioned before, rounds of bullets were heard in Watertown in a residential neighborhood. So both brothers opened fire on the police, and some bullets even made it into neighboring houses, which is pretty scary considering you're just trying to go to bed and you hear all this going on. So letter D, after being shot, Tamerlan was announced dead, and a long night, which is pretty much morning, left neighbors worried and scared, especially knowing that Dzhokhar was still on the loose and pretty much could be anywhere. So here are kind of sort of wrapping up with arrests. After looking out his window, a man sees his boat slightly, not really vandalized, but different, and he kind of walked up to it to see what was inside, and he sees a bloody man inside, which is quite frightening. But let us see. The main arrest, obviously, was Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, because he's kind of the last man standing after he ran over his brother. And that was after the authorities convinced him to surrender. And just after 9 p.m., the suspect was finally in custody, and Boston kind of flooded the streets, all happy, relieved. So this is just kind of wrap up Boston Strong, what Boston really is like. Kind of everybody from the law enforcement to runners, everybody that could help just immediately helped. Whether it's runners literally kept on running and ran to hospitals to give blood or whatever they had to do. And finally, as many of you probably saw on Twitter, hashtag Boston Strong, kind of sticking together and proving we can overcome these horrific things. So this is Dan Niedermeyer signing off. Thank you for watching my screencast.